Hey darling, welcome back to my channel. Boyce here, and on the channel it is my goal to help you find your next book obsession. I'm cozy, I'm comfy, and I am ready to talk to you today about something very, very exciting. Today I'm sitting down with one of the most interesting authors in the progression fantasy space. Someone you have probably already heard of, and if you haven't, we're going to fix that today. Today I get to interview the one and only ThinkTwice. You may know ThinkTwice from the Mark of the Crijik series. 5 books in, published through Aethon Books, set in a world where magic literally has a will of its own and can choose to ignore you. It's one of the most distinctive magic systems in the genre, in my opinion. Or maybe you found them through The Root of All Evil, their newer series that explores the same world from a completely different angle. Poverty instead of privilege, grit instead of grace. Both series are set in the same world. Now, I've done a first look on both Mark of the Crijik and The Root of All Evil, as well as a series overview for Mark of the Crijik. So I will link those below, probably put them in the title cards, so you can learn more about his books. One thing of note, we're doing fun facts in this interview a little bit differently. I actually asked ThinkTwice to give me a little more detail on all of the fun facts, so you're going to see those sprinkled throughout. All right, my friend, let's dive into the interview.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
I want to talk a little bit about the fun facts first. You raise
Sure.
seeing eye dog puppies? Tell me more.
Yeah, so Vera's around here. Mum's in the guest bedroom sleeping with Vera though, but Vera is the seeing eye dog puppy.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, because I'm an author, I have a lot of free time, right? And
Speak for
right.
yourself.
Well, I have like free time in terms of just being able to do other things, like
Yeah,
a puppy, you can raise them while writing, that kind of stuff.
that's true.
Um, and I've always been the kind of person who says, or who said to himself when he was younger, definitely if I get free time, then I'll do the charity, all that sort of stuff. And I guess the time came up and I was like, okay, time to put my money where my mouth is, sort of thing.
Oh, that's
And
great.
yeah, but I was doing a few other charity things before Vera. I just figured I'd have a free year, so I'll try raising a seeing eye dog.
That is so cool. So what's the
Um,
process for that?
It was actually really simple for me because my references, well, I don't know if it's hard to do or not, but basically I was donating to Seeing Eye Dogs, and I knew that they had a program for, fostering Seeing Eye Dog puppies because they send you emails and stuff. I applied. It took a while, took like 3 or 4 months, but I applied, and my references were just the other charities that I'd worked in, so that was fun. Um, Yeah, and honestly, that's the process of getting Vera, but fostering Vera herself, she comes in when she's like 2 to 3 weeks old, so she's really adorable and hitting her head on everything. Honestly, I did not puffy proof the place as much as I thought I had. Yeah, like at some point she dropped a guitar like on the floor, and I was like, okay, well,
Oops.
she's a tiny puppy. No, she loved the guitar after that. Just fed her a whole bunch of kibbles. Um, but yeah, so it was definitely different, to have a puppy in the house. First few weeks were definitely no sleep or anything like that. But after
Yeah.
that, it's been pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when my dog was a puppy, I was up every 3 hours.
Exactly. I think I set up like a little bed next to because she's got to be in a crate for crate training. Like Vision Australia requires it, and so I was just sleeping beside her for the first few days,
Oh,
just on the crate.
that's so
Yeah.
sweet. Oh. So I want to talk about you picking up a new hobby every 3 months because I relate to that so hard. I'm into
Mhm.
crochet right now.
Ooh, nice. Have you made anything super cool
Well, I've
that you
made
can
all
show?
those plushies up there. I don't know if you
Oh,
can
that's
see them,
awesome.
but yeah, I'm really
Wow, in
proud of
3 months.
them. Huh?
Nice. In only 3 months. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I
Well,
I think yeah, I started about February, so I guess it hasn't quite been 3 months yet.
you'd relate then, but basically I'm the same. So I do pick up a hobby. It's every 3 to 6 months or so. So this time it's the One Piece TCG. I've done different things like various types of dancing, various types of games. And so I know what triggers it sort of in terms of just like me getting interested in the hobby. If you tell me that I'll be like bad at something, then I get the drive to like prove the
You
person
build
wrong.
hobbies out of
Sort of.
spite. I love it.
Yeah, it's not spite. I think I just get driven at some point because I immediately drop the hobby if I get like a certain like milestone, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, so for example, I've counted, well, actually, I lost count, but let's say 5 times because that's when I stopped counting. I've been number one in the world 5 times in different games. And that was because A, I've got a general, like, I guess affinity for games.
Hmm.
But B, it's because no one told me you don't say, oh, you can't get this rank. You say, oh, you probably can't get like, worldwide super good. And then just suddenly I'm like, I have to do it now. There's no holding back. Whereas with something like I mentioned, the dancing or bouldering or something, it's usually just a super simple task. I think dancing, I literally just wanted like a bronze. I think they're like bronze medals or something like that, like just a certain class thing. And the difference was I turned up halfway through. It was like a uni course or a uni dance club,
Hmm.
and the person at the desk said, "Oh, we're already too late into semester. You probably won't be able to get the, bronze medal certificate or whatever." And I was like, "That sounds like a challenge. I've got 3 weeks. I'm
I
totally gonna
accept.
do it." Yeah, and I did it. Um, yeah, so generally it goes like that. I remember with chess, like just recently passed, I didn't actually care about chess itself. In fact, I didn't even like chess itself, if I'm being honest, like the game.
Okay.
What I did like was the chess puzzles. Like,
Mm.
I really, really like the chess puzzles. So I got to the top 10,000 in puzzles. And then I figured that's enough because my brain just kind of switches off. It's not like a physical, I say I'm going to get this much. It's more like if I hit this, then suddenly I just lose interest.
Hmm.
That was what it was with chess. I hit the top 10,000 for puzzles. I was like, yep, that's good enough. People have been doing this for years and they're not there. I'm out.
That's
Um,
great. Yeah, I totally relate to that. I was doing jewelry making, wire wrapping, beading for a while. Then I got into engraving, like coins and stuff, and
yep. Heck yeah.
then tarot, and now crochet. So, yeah,
Nice.
I relate so hard to that.
It,
Can't commit
yeah,
to a
it's
TV
fun.
show, but I can commit to a hobby.
Well, what if your hobby becomes making a TV show? That'd be fun.
There we go. Can you tell me about using dictation? Use because you couldn't use your hands at one point. That's how you got started with dictation. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty old story now. Well, I guess 2021, so not that old, but 5 years or so. Uh, Pretty simply put, so we still don't know what caused it, but basically I lost the use of my hands overnight. And it wasn't like they went floppy, like not like floppy hands. It was just a constant pain, so I couldn't hold anything, couldn't do anything, that kind of stuff.
Oh my goodness.
And it lasted a while. So keep in mind, this is all of this is like a year and a half worth of like stuff happening.
Oh my
So
God.
basically it was my hands first and then it spread to my back and then to my legs, but not like it was just going from one part to the other, more like it just kept spreading
Yeah.
and staying in the previous parts. So you got to keep in mind the mindset I was in because I'm going to tell you some decisions that were really dumb but worked out in a
Okay.
nice way. So the mindset was, unfortunately, at the time, that I either had MS, multiple sclerosis,
Yeah.
or some kind of brain cancer, or some kind of brain issue, and none of the prospects were particularly nice in terms of what would
Yeah.
happen within the next few months or years.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, when you can't really do anything with your hands and legs, plus I lost my job at that point, there wasn't too much to do, if that makes sense,
Mm.
right? So I had to think of what I wanted to do, especially if, let's put it just not too grim, because obviously everything turned out perfectly fine. But let's imagine back in that time where I didn't know everything was going to turn out perfectly fine, and I was told by doctors most likely it wouldn't. Well, I had to think of what I was going to do in those kind of next few months of my life, sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
And what I really wanted to do was write, right? And so I had no savings, and I'd already been writing for I think about 8 years before then. So
Hmm.
just on Royal Road and other, like, just actually mostly Royal Road. Pretty much I've been there. I was one of the first 300 or so users, and I was there when the site first like was created.
Oh,
I just had a thing
OG.
against making accounts. Yeah. Well, I used to be an admin on the Royal Road. It was called Royal Road Weed at the time, Blogspot,
Mm-hmm.
and then they switched from the Blogspot, which hosted the actual. So I don't know if you know, Royal Road is actually a fan fiction site originally,
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've
that spun off from Legendary Moonlight Sculptor being translated.
oh, okay. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they used to translate Legendary Moonlight Sculptor, and I was an admin on the Blogspot where they were posting the that. But so many people became fan fiction writers of the series that they then created a separate website for people to host their fan fictions. And then those became original fictions, and then you end up with Royal Road as you know it today. But the first few hundred or so stories, if you look through them, they're basically all featured within a game called Royal Road because they're all fan fictions.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'd already been writing there for 8 years. I just had a really small problem in that I wanted to write, and it was pretty much the only thing I wanted to do if I had nothing else I could do. But I couldn't use my hands, right?
Yeah.
It's a pretty big issue.
Pretty big problem. Yeah.
So, yeah, so I bought a USB microphone, which ended up doing absolutely nothing, but it did solidify um, the fact that I was kind of committing myself to it because that was actually the last of my savings in terms of discretionary savings.
Mm-hmm.
Just all spent on that microphone. And what happens is, so the microphone didn't help, but what it did do was cement that what I wanted to do. And so I went through different websites. And different like programs and stuff. So Dragon Naturally Speaking, I went
Yeah.
through like Microsoft, the voice that they have that I think got discontinued recently, and Apple Dictation and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I kind of tried them all in order to do writing. And for some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason, the Apple Dictation stuck with me. So I literally just had like a selfie stick or, yeah, selfie stick, phone stand kind of deal. And I put the phone on it and I just kept talking into it. Now, funnily enough, back then, VR, so VR MMO, so virtual reality, mass multiplayer online stories were kind of going out of fashion.
Mm.
I hadn't really caught on to that trend, so I was going to continue writing a previous story that I had, which was in that genre. But because dictation was so different, like really, really different, um, I decided to try first a new story, right? Just to try and get used to dictation. And funnily enough, that story ended up being the one that became the bestseller, which was Mark of the Crijik. And so I started that and I was posting it as I was writing. And because I had literally nothing else I could do, I was writing the entire, like I wrote 3 books in 3 months, I think,
Wow.
for that story. Yeah, and I slowed down a lot by that third month. So really, it was 2 books in sort of 1 month-ish, and then one month, one book over 2 months, kind of.
Wow. I thought I was fast.
Um,
That's amazing.
yeah, but keep in mind, I couldn't do too much else, so I
Yeah.
literally just had hours and hours a day to spend on it. Um, and so yeah, that's how that all worked out because obviously that made money, and then I got better, and so yeah, it all worked out.
That's fantastic. I'm so glad it worked out. And it's weird. Like it just went away on its own.
We don't, like I said, they don't quite know what happened,
Mm-hmm.
but reactive arthritis was so reactive arthritis is just a type of arthritis.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the main things that I had among a few other things. And they think that, so that one goes and then it comes back every dozen years or so potentially. Sometimes it doesn't. And so they think that's what I had in terms of that's
Okay.
what they diagnosed me with for one of the things. A few of the other symptoms lingered for like a long time. I'm not gonna lie. So I think it was another 2 years or so that I had. Um, well, they weren't. It wasn't pain or anything. It was actually I've developed different reactions, sort of similar to allergic reactions, but they're just reactions because they're not allergic ones.
Mm-hmm.
To different kinds of foods. So yeah, I just got hit by a lot of stuff at once, basically.
Yeah. But you pushed through,
They
you
don't quite know.
persevered. That's awesome.
Most likely, honestly, it was probably COVID because that was COVID times. But in terms of like So it would have been COVID, just a normal COVID infection, but my body would have just overreacted to it
Mhm.
essentially. So just an immune issue. Um, that's what's most likely, but I honestly can't tell you. Like, there's no
Yeah.
way to tell unless you pinpoint the exact moment that I got hit, and then actually had me tested at that moment.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Well, I'm glad you're here. Glad you're okay. You have said that writing brutal, action-heavy scenes is something you love, but that you also think it's a weak point. Why do you feel that way? And what is your favorite kind of scene to write?
Okay, so I've always loved writing action scenes, but the problem is I always feel like I go too descriptive. Like, when you say, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened kind of thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's what I've felt because a lot of my stories, especially Mark of the Crijik, they just don't revolve around action scenes. I don't have experience in it. And I really, really wanted to write a kung fu fighting baby when I was writing Mark of the Crijik. That was one of my goals because part of what I was practicing was, well, I was practicing first person. I was practicing a male protagonist because I actually wrote female protagonists until then.
Oh, awesome.
And I wanted to practice action, an action kind of story. And that didn't work out because I couldn't find any logical way for the baby to fight anything. And that just persisted throughout the series. Like there's very little action scenes. There's a lot of action, but
Hmm.
the actual fighting scenes, there's very like few of those spread out throughout the novels. Honestly, I think that actually works out for the better in Mark of
Hmm.
the Crijik. It has like a very particular vibe. Um, and so I like it. Like I like writing it. But yeah, I do wish I'd be able to write action scenes just seamlessly. Like I read a whole bunch of novels and people are just like adding action scenes everywhere and it does sort of it flows nicely a lot of the time. And
Hmm.
I just can't do that. I can't do like an assassin pops up out of nowhere sort of deals, anything like that. But my favorite scenes to write are probably just like the big epic scenes. I like it. Like climaxes, finales, all those kinds of deals. Yeah. Those are definitely what I like to write the most.
Yeah, all that emotional payoff hitting at one time in the finale. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the best
exactly.
feeling. Once I get to the
Yeah,
like the two-thirds mark, I can't stop. I don't do anything else. I just write.
that's actually my favorite. So my favorite book out of Mark of the Crijik is book one. Like I love book one of Mark of the Crijik, but I think the best Mark of the Crijik book is book four, and it's particularly because it all sort of came together. Like all these great little moments in the book came together to make a really satisfying climax.
Yeah.
So I think I've gone back to read the climax of book four, probably the most times out of all of my books, like scenes.
Hmm.
Uh, and that's actually something. So I've talked a lot about this with the guys, like the fellow authors and stuff. I love reading my writing. Like a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
No, I go back. Even I think I've gone back like, to the earliest writings, and I just look back and I'm like, wow, I was so awesome, and I still am. But this writing is
I
so
love
good.
that so
Like,
much.
yeah, like sure, it's simpler, but I like it. So I've always been really happy I can do that. Like just go back and read the books and stuff.
Good.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, you're right. Like most people, and like when I go back and look at my writing, I usually red pin it, so I can't.
Hmm.
I just don't let myself go back and read it. I'll sometimes listen to it. That's easier for me to do. I'm less inclined to just rip it apart and rewrite it that way, but I see what you mean. Oh, so when it comes to Mark of the Crijik, how much of the long game mythology and world building did you map out ahead of time, and how much did you discover as you wrote?
A lot was discovered, but to be honest, I've always been the kind of guy to plan stuff out. Look, so it's a bit confusing because I don't actually write. You know how there's pantsers as a writer and there's plotters. So pantsers will write from the seat of their pants, making
Hmm.
everything up. Plotters will plot everything in advance. I'm not a plotter. I can't be a plotter. I've tried it before. It just loses the excitement of the chapters if I try to write them in advance, like summaries and stuff, and work out where the book is going to go.
Hmm.
But I've always known the ending of Mark of the Crijik, and I've always known the beginning. And so I'm essentially just writing the middle part of the journey, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so but there are a lot of things that I know about Mark of the Crijik that. So, actually, have you ever gotten into One Piece? I know we just briefly mentioned the card game before.
I know of it, but I never really got into it.
Okay,
I know I'm
well,
supposed to.
just
It's on my list of
yeah.
things to watch, so.
Well, I'll use an analogy. No spoilers. There's an arc in One Piece, the equivalent of a book, essentially, worth of story. Um, and it was kind of the author's way of testing ideas that would later be put in full in different books in the future, right?
Okay.
So without that test book or without that test arc, I don't think any of the stuff in the future would have been done nearly as well, even if a lot of it didn't directly translate. I had a similar thing for Mark of the Crijik. So Mark of the Crijik was originally seen as a story that I've created when I was visiting. Like I went to South America, and I was driving like in the mountains area, like just in a highway, but there were mountains all around us. And I saw this shadow following the car, and I thought it was the car like reflecting from like onto the mountain because there was nothing else. The clear sky, nothing in the sky, nothing around.
Hmm.
Um, and so I thought it was the car, like somehow the shadow was being reflected onto the mountain, at which point the shadow suddenly sped up and then passed me. So I was like, that was pretty cool.
That's
And it
neat.
really stuck with me. Yeah, well, it really stuck with me. And so that night, I created a story in my mind about what it could have been. And I came up with this kind of Birdman that would be the Crijik. And then it would be kind of like a horror story where there would be a village in the mountain. They would worship the Crijik kind of like as a deity, even if it wasn't. And they would sacrifice, a girl every time. And then somebody would stop by the town and discover all the weird stuff within and then have to try and, survive the horror story, right?
Hmm.
Now, that was called Cry of the Crijik because obviously the Crijik would make a cry, and I imagine the cry sounding like the word Crijik, right?
Okay.
Um, when I actually started writing it though, because I wanted to write lit RPG,
Hmm.
I changed a lot of stuff. So it was going to be called Cry of the Crijik still, but then he got the mark in the first chapter, and I wrote the first chapter and I was about to post it, and I thought, actually, the mark is a lot more relevant. I'll put Mark of the Crijik instead. And the Crijik itself changed to an eldritch, entity, right? But I still kept a lot of the stuff. So in book five, um, it focuses on like the Phoenix kind of character.
Hmm.
And that was basically the story of how I originally envisioned it and planned it out.
That's really
Where the
cool.
Crijik would be that kind of, yeah, the flying character, except it got turned into a phoenix, and there was still the village in the mountains, but they got turned into villages that, worship the phoenix instead. So that part, kind of like if I hadn't mapped out that first story, the rest of the Mark of the Crijik wouldn't have worked, even if pretty much none of the first story came into the second story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's the
Um,
foundation you built everything else on.
yeah, exactly. And that helped. I think the other thing that helped is just so Mark of the Crijik had a lot of like restrictions. So I mentioned that there were goals that I wanted. So first person, I wanted a male protagonist and action oriented story, which but there were also restrictions too. So I remember reading Shield Hero and Mushoku Tensei. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but they're two Japanese light novels that are centered around the same sort of theme of reincarnation
Hmm.
and reincarnated as a baby who then, oh, actually, Shield Hero wasn't, but it was like they were the two big things that people were reading at the time, right? But there was too much underage sexualization. And so, and the other thing is that in both of them, pretty much, and all the other Japanese light novels that I read and Korean, the church was super evil in all of them. Like, just like unabashedly evil. Like, it's like, hey, these guys aren't even hiding it. They're just super duper evil, like laughing
Just cartoon
maniacally.
evil.
Yeah, cartoon evil, just slaughtering babies left and right.
Oh,
If you saw a priest, you're like, okay, that guy's evil. He looks nice, but he's gonna be evil, and then he turns evil. So that was the two goals I had there. So one, no sexualization of any sort of minors or anything like that,
thank
which
you.
is also partly why all the babies grew up pretty quickly, through magic. And the other thing was I wanted the church to be good. And if I wanted the church to be good, then well, essentially, I just wanted them to be good because it's more interesting to me. Like, obviously, some people in churches can be like bad, like any organization. I just didn't want that whole laughably, evil kind of deal to go on.
Yeah, I see that.
So for the most part, the church was good, but they've always been uh, like a good oppressive force for the MC because the MC's whole point is that he's kind of like a second Jesus, where there's already an existing Jesus, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So, yeah, so he gets the mark of the Crijik. Now, imagine the Crijik is essentially a god in that world where there's seven gods. Now, each deity, so each god, they have their own chosen one, a marked one, right? But the problem is, so that marked one is essentially treated as the god themselves, like sort of their representation on Earth through a human vessel,
Okay.
right? Yep. But the problem with Mark of the Crijik is that the main character has the mark of the Crijik, so he's a marked one, but there's already a marked one in existence, and there's only ever been one at a time for every other
Oh,
deity.
okay.
Yeah, so he's literally like a second Jesus. So the first four books or so just him. Well, the first book is him hiding from the church for a lot of it, but the big climax is that to get help to save the main character, the other characters had to let the church know that he exists so that they would come and save him. And then book two and three and four is essentially the church is in the background, like they're doing good stuff, so they
Mhm.
still do good stuff. And he's learning about the church as he, progresses through the novels. But they're also not giving him everything or anything at all because they're testing him because he could be a fake. Like there's going to be a lot of people who try to fake that sort of stuff, especially in a magic world.
Sure.
Um, yeah, and so they're testing him to see if he really is a second marked one. And the fifth book obviously deals with the consequences because at the end of book four, the church finally accepts that he is one. Yeah. So I feel like the church being good is it helps that a lot because they're not uncharacteristically evil, but they're not good in the sense of sure they help ordinary people. They're not necessarily going to give everything to the main character just because he says he's God. That kind of stuff.
We get to say some fun sentences as authors, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the other fun facts you said was you and Paul Rudd had a conversation about your butts.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a fun little story. So have you already talked with like other authors like Shirley and Haylock and all them?
Hmm.
Yeah. So we're pretty much in a friend group, and what happens is we went to this hotel in the Gold Coast in Queensland, and so it was called the Langham Hotel, and it was really fun. We're in the penthouse for the week, really
Ooh,
great. Like,
fancy.
yeah, I know, nice experience. They had like a pool, they had a sauna, had a good view, all that sort of stuff. And it turns out that all the celebrities that come, or most of the celebrities that come to film movies in the Gold Coast, because there's better tax incentives, also have an agreement. So the studios have an agreement with the Langham. Essentially, they'll house the celebrities and cater to their every needs, give them discounted rates, all that sort of stuff. And in return, they get to say, "Hey, celebrities come to our hotel, right? So you should stay here as well."
Yeah,
Right. And so I heard all these stories from the guys because they were all meeting all these different celebrities, like not talking to them, but like seeing them. So they'd come back and they'd be like, "Oh, I just saw Russell Crowe," or "Oh, I just saw this other person." I'll be honest, I didn't know most of the names. I'm not super huge into celebrity culture.
yeah, me
But
neither.
yeah, but we went to go grab breakfast and basically all right, I discovered two things. First of all, Paul Rudd was clearly there because he walked into the breakfast area. And two, they had unlimited donut buffets. And so it's important. This is important
It's an
context
important detail, yeah.
because, exactly, it's an important detail because what happens is while everyone was distracted by Paul Rudd, I thought this is the best moment to go and actually take a whole bunch of donuts and just eat some and then sneak the rest to the room, right? So I can eat later.
Of course.
Um, Yeah, exactly. It's like the celebrity flashbang, you know?
Yeah.
Celebrity on one hand, the donuts in the other. Um, anyway, I was eating the donut, so it took me a couple of minutes, and I left because I was literally sneaking out donuts. I'm pretty sure they would have just let me go, but I felt like I was in a professional heist, you know?
The
Um,
stakes were
yeah.
not very high, but it was still a heist. It still counts.
Exactly. And so I was heading towards the elevator to go back to the rooms, and I swear I was looking everywhere because I had the donuts in my hand, sneaking them away. You know how you are. You look over your shoulder to check security's not following you to grab the donuts back.
Yeah.
But then so I swear there was no one there. But I enter the elevator, and then bam, Paul Rudd is just right there, like rushing into the elevator. I think he was getting chased by like fans, from when people like sneaky chase celebrities, it's like, oh, we're not going, we're just going in the same direction, sort of thing. So he
Oh.
must have sped up, goes in, and he immediately butt slams all of the buttons in the elevator. Um, so, and I did the exact same reaction. I just started laughing like crazy, and I apologize. I'm like, I did the exact same thing yesterday. That's why I'm laughing because I did. Um, and so we started talking, and I was like, oh, it must be because we got our workout butts. And he's like, but what if we just got those big butts, you know? I was like, you're right. I'm sticking out these donuts right here, and we just start talking about the donuts. Yeah, so that lasted a tiny bit longer than usual, I guess, because all the buttons got pressed. But yeah, that was fun.
That is fun.
Yeah.
Oh
I
man, what a
didn't run
great
into any
story.
other. Oh, no, I lied. Actually, I did run into another celebrity. This was with Haylock. We ran into Jack Black in the gym.
Oh,
At the same thing. Yeah, because they were filming. I told my mum, and she said that they were filming Anaconda. So like it's a movie that came out recently with Paul Rudd and Jack Black.
oh,
Yeah.
I'm
So they were
so out of
filming
touch with
that.
popular culture. I so out of touch.
Yeah. Well, I was super into chess at that point because I go into different hobbies like for a few months at a time.
Hmm.
And Haylock messaged me saying Jack Black's right behind me, and he was right behind me, but I immediately lost my chess match because I was replying to the message and I just screwed up. So all
Oops.
Jack Black hears me say is no, just like Darth Vader getting the helmet on from my treadmill. Yeah. But no real conversations with him. A quick hi. But yeah, it was it
That's
was a
so
fun
cool.
trip.
That is that. Oh man, that sounds so fun. So let's move on to the magic system because the idea that magic has its own will and can choose to ignore you. I mean, I think that is really cool and really distinctive in your series. So where did that idea
Yeah.
come from?
Well, to be honest, it's always been a really like I've always assumed magic has a will. But then again, I also apologize to this piece of paper for flapping into my face the other day in the wind. So maybe I'm the kind of guy who's like, yeah, maybe that paper has nothing to do with it. But what if in the next life that paper comes back and it's like, hey, you didn't apologize to me. Now I'm
Totally
gonna
fair.
give you a
Yeah, no,
paper
I'm with
cut,
you
you
on
know?
that.
Yeah. So, so I've always been that kind of guy. So I don't know. For me, I actually found it weird that magic doesn't have a will most times. I've always felt like it did. Like a big influence for me was Harry Potter, of course, right? Now, I've always felt like magic had a will in Harry Potter. And sure, it might have just been child me going through the magic motions and all that, but certain spells work in certain ways. There's always something happening. Like I think, oh, I was just getting a random call, but that's fine. So, so like at the end of Chamber of Secrets, for example, I really remember the Phoenix coming in and basically just giving the explanation of, the Phoenix knows when you need help and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I like that. Like these kinds of different magic is kind of guided by its own set of laws. It has its own will. It knows what's happening around it, sort of deal.
Yeah.
Obviously, in my setting, it's a lot more like the MC is constantly around magic. Oh, and that was the other thing. So Harry Potter, sure, but also just Star Wars with the Force. Like I've always, in the first Star Wars movie, when they go through the trench and Luke has to like fire into the, destroy the Death Star, and he gets told to use the Force. I kind of feel like, okay, so the Force is literally like guiding him. It's got its own will, sort of thing. So I've
Okay.
always just felt that way about the different systems, even if I guess others probably haven't. Yeah.
Okay. So, what do
And
you
yeah.
think that magic with a will, how does that, or what does that let you do narratively that a traditional or hard magic system maybe wouldn't? How do you use that differently?
Well, the thing they really did for lit RPG stuff is it let me use a soft magic system instead of a hard one. So a lot of lit RPGs, essentially they are hard magic. You know, you do a certain spell, it does a certain amount of damage. Uh, there's not too much like flexibility there. Like
Hmm.
obviously it's dynamic, it's exciting, it's awesome. With mine, it's more like no damage sort of numbers at all, anything like that. When Magic has a will, my main character goes through a lot of stuff like he'll literally meditate to connect with Magic, you know, to befriend it. He will then ask it to do different things, which it can. But there's this sense of companionship, you know, throughout the story that I don't think you get as much with a spell with a hard number sort of thing.
Yeah, that's so true.
Um, yeah, for example, Dungeon Crawler Carl is probably a really good example of the opposite of what I do because there's very hard set skills and abilities, right? Like a lot of the skills that Carl uses, just minor spoilers, they revolve around traps, explosives, and all that for the first few novels.
Hmm.
There's no real talking to the traps or not or the explosions, right? Like
Yeah.
if you blow up a bunch of babies, which may or may not happen in the novels, you're not really going, "Hey, Mr. Bomb, can you do this for me?" sort of thing. Whereas I have like a lot of leeway with my sort of like let's put me in the same scenario. If there's a bunch of bad guys and there's a bunch of babies in a room, like bad guys and babies both in the room,
Okay.
if my main character was to use magic to crush the babies and the bad guys, the magic could decide itself to actually ignore all of the babies, right? Like there's a leeway there to make things a lot less violent, which I think is why I have so much trouble, funnily enough, writing fighting scenes and all that.
No, that makes a lot of
Um,
sense.
yeah, it's not just about using magic for magic's sake. Magic just happens to become a part of the world and a character in the world. And it's not just one character because every type of magic has, you know, different characteristics and different personalities and stuff like that. So it worked out really well
Yeah.
in terms of that. But for me, it's always just been a sense of feeling for it wouldn't make sense for me for magic to simply be harnessed. It kind of felt to me like there always had to be this kind of connection between magic and the user. And there's only way for them to connect is if there were two wills connecting with each other rather than, you know, something non existent and without a will connecting to a person.
I think that's really cool. Andross's relentlessly positive mindset is actually pretty polarizing in the series. So some readers find it refreshing and others find it frustrating. What were you going with originally?
Oh no, that's just him. There wasn't a direction for that. Andross's personality is one that I didn't have to like craft on purpose. It was one that just flowed out.
Oh, okay.
And
Nice. I
look,
love it when they just flow like that.
yeah. And so for a lot of the things, like don't get me wrong, an author can always dictate what the characters do, right? Like a character's personality doesn't necessarily take over the whole book, determine how the book goes and all that. But when you're writing by the seat of your pants, a lot of times it does. Like a lot of the decisions that are made within the book are made because I think, is this what Andross would do? And the answer is usually he would do this, not this, that sort of stuff. The fact that he's positive is just a byproduct of the fact that that's who he is. Like, he had a pretty painful death. He's sent to a new world. He's got to be the kind of person who's positive, or he wouldn't be able to handle that, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
that's fair.
Um, at least in my mind, like he just became that kind of person. Uh, the other thing is, a big part of Andross's personality is simply that he was a pretty ordinary guy beforehand. Like that was a big difference between Dollar and Andross. Andross was an ordinary guy sent to a new world. Dollar was a completely unordinary guy sent to a new world.
Mm,
So Dollar has a lot more action because he's the kind of person who did have a lot of action back on Earth, right? Andross, on the other hand, didn't have any action back on Earth. So if something happens, he's kind of like he's really chill about it. He's not like I'm gonna dive in head first into like a bunch of monsters and stuff. He's more like, ah, I wonder what I could do here. Can I call the police? If not, can I deal with this on my own? Kind of stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say he's relentlessly positive. I would say he's relentlessly normal in a
Relentlessly
way
normal.
that,
Okay, I like that. I like that.
yeah, but in a way that because it's so abnormal to have a normal person in like a lit RPG story, it can come off as relentlessly positive
Not funny.
because positive in the sense, yeah, exactly. Well, it's because it's positive in the sense that like in a lit RPG, let's say you encounter someone that's insulting you, right? The
Okay.
standard is at some point to completely ruin that person's life as the main character and, destroy their family, potentially their home and or
And the
country.
bloodline. Yeah.
Yeah, and the bloodline kind of deal. So with Andross, he comes off as relentlessly positive sometimes because he just doesn't do that. Like, he's just like, oh my God, this person insulted me. I don't particularly care. I should move on with my life now.
Healthy coping
It's kind of like,
mechanisms don't fit in lit
yeah,
RPG sometimes.
yeah. Have you seen well exactly. It's kind of like so it's like when you bump into someone, in the street, the lit RPG main character is gonna go and just like, it'll be an immediate fight. Whereas Andros is like, wait a second, I have a nice life. And then he laughs and then he moves on and just keeps walking.
Oh man.
So that's possibly where the relentless positivity can come from. Because I don't think he's relentlessly positive. There's a lot of darker moments and stuff, or doubts, all those sorts of human moments.
Hmm.
Um, it's just the fact that he's living his life pretty normally that can come off as more positive for a lit RPG story. And I think it gives a really big addition to the vibe, the general vibe of the series, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
for sure.
Um, yeah, like a lot of the stuff that I thought was really fun to write and that was really gripping in the first book was just Andros exploring magic in general, and the world in general, because that's what a normal person would do, right? They wouldn't be
Yeah.
like, I can use these spells and I can max them out. It's more like, holy crap, I can shoot my breath like a fire dragon. And then he has that moment in book one where he's like, I can shoot my because he uses earth magic for anyone that doesn't know. He shoots a breath like a dragon, majestic, just through the air of like stones, and they immediately get flapped back into his mouth by a bird. So, like that kind of fun little interactions,
Yeah.
that's what happens when I think a normal person goes and explores magic, where it's kind of like, okay, sure, you can try and min max, the best way to create a super sharp spear to stab stuff and gain experience and levels, or you can try and see how far you can shoot your mud and then you can sleep in a dirt bed to see if it, helps you at all with magic and stuff like that. Like, you don't necessarily just you're exploring and you're having fun with it. It doesn't have to be like you've got a Google Drive in your mind, checking the best answers. It's
Yeah.
more like, hey, let's have fun with it. Let's explore it. Some things might work, some things might not. Uh, you know, yeah,
No,
that
that's
kind
really
of deal.
fun. I really like that approach. That's really cool. And I guess the last fun fact you sent was about playing the One Piece trading card game.
Yeah. Yeah, so that one obviously not as fun as the other facts, but for some people just as fun. That one I actually got into because of Haylock and uh, Rhino Z. So both of them play the One Piece TCG trading card game. I've never been into trading card games at all, to be honest.
Hmm.
Uh, but I played it, and now I've been playing it for about a couple of months or so, and it's been really fun. I've done a regionals with Haylock, and I'll be doing another one, funnily enough, with him in Brisbane, in May.
Oh,
And so, yeah, it's been pretty nice. It's been an excuse to like get together with the guys too every now and then.
yeah.
Because we go to visit each other, and we'll be going. I think we'll be pretty much meeting up again in May as a group, so that's
Nice.
fun. I don't know if you heard about this or not. You might not have, but my last experience in DragonCon, well, okay, the DragonCon itself was fantastic. I loved DragonCon, like meeting up with all the authors, all that sort of stuff. But also, a guy got attacked on the street, and so yeah, I don't know if you heard about that. I was with like Shadowloon and all the other guys, and what happens is a guy got attacked on the street, like slammed against the garage and then choked on the street. And I had to step in because literally everybody else, and I was on the other side of the street. I shouldn't have had to step in, but I did step in and everything ended up fine. But that's the thing, like, not a great, not a great
Not a great
experience
experience.
overall.
Yeah.
That being said, fantastic icebreaker because I was with like 10 other people from the lit RPG stuff, and it was kind of like, um, when you have something in common, but like you're not really friends or anything. It's kind of it's all professional, like, hey, how you
Yeah.
doing? Weather's nice. No, but when you see a guy getting beat down the street and then you step in to help, like it's a big icebreaker, or at least it was.
Absolutely. I
Um,
can totally see that.
yeah, my experiences in Dragon Con and stuff were fantastic. Just a bit mixed in terms of like you have that happen, and then I'm thinking, okay, but I'm Latino, so I have to worry about a few other things. What if that happened to me rather than happening to some guy across the street? Yeah,
So if you were dipped into this world for 24 hours, what is the first thing you would do besides panic?
I'd probably, yeah, I'd probably die some sort of horrible death. It
Okay.
really depends where in the world you get like dropped off on, because it's
Mm,
really not a nice world. Like I think that was the trade-off for Andros being such a normal guy, is the fact that the world had to be really rude, not rude, really mean and hostile to be able to send him into like actual activities that could get him in danger and
hmm.
for him to have to, fight. It in my mind, actually, this was one of the biggest influences. So not for the magic system or anything like that, but for the world. Uh, Bloodborne, the video game,
Okay.
absolutely fantastic video game. Um, that is sorry. So basically, Bloodborne was a huge inspiration, and the world is essentially Bloodborne, where there are a lot of different creatures, different monsters, and usually eldritch horrors, and they can spawn from anywhere. Literally, like a blade of grass could turn into a monster, and within seconds, it could grow strong enough to destroy entire cities, sort of deal, right?
Awesome.
So, yeah, and so if I'm walking around in that world, Andros has the benefit of being a god. I don't particularly have that benefit. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of safe cities. I remember I designed the world to be different levels of hostile. So there's a wildlands kind of area, which is
Hmm.
incredibly hostile. You're pretty much dead. There's a central area that's run by an empire. That's pretty much safe. Um, and then there's the area where Andros ends up in, and even so, Dollar actually is in the same area, sort of, in his books, in the southern continent. That's just low level monster kind of deals, but still big monsters. Because that's the whole thing. Like, I don't have too many little monsters, like little critters that just come at you. I have big, massive hulking monsters, and you basically defeat one per book, sort
Okay.
of deal.
What is one survival skill that Dollar or Andros have that you genuinely wish you had?
So Dollar's got the grind mindset, like the hustle mindset. So
Hmm.
if I had his mindset, I'd probably be making like hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, never stopping, never stopping the writing journey sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, he doesn't really have that whole like any sort of block on what he wants to do. If he wants something, he gets it. Andros is a lot different. So Andros literally just stays still. He makes friends, has a nice, comfortable life doing that. He's pretty chill about it. I don't think, honestly, one of the biggest issues I had with him as the writer, obviously, I can overcome it just by being the author, but Andros himself wouldn't even care about the fact that he's gonna die pretty soon, like at 25 or whatever, because for him, that's a long time because he already lived his first life. Now he's living the second life. He's kind of like, yeah, that's a pretty cool deal. Um, and so that's a pretty good mindset to have too, just to be like relaxed enough in life that the big things don't really make you too worried. You're just
Yeah.
enjoying the moment. So two different things, I guess, two different mindsets and personalities, because they're pretty much just direct opposites of each other.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
cool how you designed that. That's really neat. So Dollar starts with the advantage of past life experience, but he's still in a new world with new rules. So what interested you in that tension specifically, the gap between like what he already knows and what he still has to learn?
So this is for the other series, The Root of All Evil, so not Mark of the Crijik, but all right, so it was a bit different with Dollar. So Dollar specifically, I wanted so Mark of the Crijik was about essentially the main character is a self-insert partially, right? Like he has a very strong personality. You love to follow his adventures, but you don't know much about his past.
Hmm.
There was one thing I wanted to do, and it did cause the conflict you just mentioned just by the fact that it exists, which is that Dollar's whole life gets shown in the first chapter or two of The Root of All Evil. So you actually know who he is, how he grew up, all that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
And then you go on to, the rest of the novel. It wasn't so much that I was interested in exploring the differences between someone who's, an ordinary person and someone who's in the rules of the new world. It's more that that happens as a byproduct of the fact that I actually explored that Dollar has a personality and a life before he reincarnated. Um, Honestly, a bit of an unpopular decision because people don't really want to read that in the genre. They want to just read, someone that doesn't have a backstory going into a new world and kind of accepting it. Dollar was a lot different. He just, because he has such a strong personality, he doesn't accept everything as it is. He
Hmm.
just he says, well, this isn't how it worked back on Earth. What's happening over here, sort of deal.
Yeah.
And it was just something that I really wanted to do. I wanted to do a character with an actual personality and backstory to boot. Um,
Okay.
Although I will say I think his personality came out a bit too strong in the books, but in a good way.
Okay. No, that's really cool. That's
Yeah.
a good, and that was a big fan question. That's what people were asking about. So thank you for that one.
Cool.
Okay, so this one's going to be a spoiler, but I'll mark it as a
Sure.
spoiler. Um, you kept the revelation that the Crijik is the god of death until book four, and
Mhm.
was withholding that piece of information deliberately structural, or did it just kind of naturally evolve that way?
The Crijik was always going to be deaf. Like that was the whole reason why they had the ritual in the beginning, like with all the altars, and then um the kind of babies all like either dying or surviving depending on how they survive the Krijik's like ritual.
Hmm.
Um, I did keep it deliberate, but to be honest, it wasn't for like I did keep it a secret deliberately, but it wasn't for a story reason. I just remember every single time it came up in terms of like writing it down, I decided to not include um that particular tidbit. In
Hmm.
fact, I think I did include it in rough early drafts on Royal Road, because I actually had so there's this structure in the City of Death called the Eye that floats above it, which is where the all the cardinals and stuff are situated. That actually was happening at the beginning of book three originally. Like that was all written to happen at the beginning of book three. Uh, and so all of it was revealed there. And I deleted it all for the official version that I released on Amazon. And I rewrote pretty much all of book three, so I didn't even include that. And it all went to book four. So it was just a deliberate decision, but to be honest, I can't tell you why I did it. Like I just kept on holding it back.
I mean, you knew on an intuitive level that it just wasn't right until
Yeah,
before. So I think it's good to listen
yeah.
to your intuition as a storyteller. Okay, so this is my last question. What is your perspective on legacy, life, and purpose?
Um, Legacy, life, and purpose. That's pretty interesting. Personally speaking, I don't think I'm going to leave behind a huge legacy. Um, I will leave behind a very cute foster seeing eye dog puppy, so that's pretty cool. But when it comes to life and stuff, so was it legacy, life,
And purpose.
and purpose? Well, the purpose. So this is something I do struggle with because originally I had the life goal of writing a book, and now I've written seven books. But the problem is, so I had the very rare experience when I got sick of being told, hey, you're probably going to die in a while, and it's not going to be a long while, it's going to be a short while.
Yeah.
So when it came to life and purpose, I pretty much had those few months to figure that out. And I did. I wrote a book, and it was a really good book, and it turned into a bestseller. So I was like, yeah. And then I just didn't die. I was pretty accepting of the death at the time. And I'm pretty sure Andross took yeah, I'm pretty sure Andros took that at like from me during the books. That's why he was so chill about it because I was pretty chill about it. I'm like, okay, I found a way to write. I'm cool now. And then I just kept on living. And so I don't have too many thoughts on life and purpose and all that because I pretty much just figured that out at that point and then resolved it. I was like, okay, cool. I'd probably pass away, but I'm pretty cool with that now that I've read the book. And then I read the book, and then I was like, okay, I'm pretty cool now because I've fulfilled all that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I suppose at some point I'll have to figure out like another purpose. That'll be fun. And I very much doubt any sort of death conversation is going to come in the near future. It would be more like a surprise truck sending me to another world if that was the case. So yeah, I don't have too many thoughts on the at the moment about
Okay.
life and purpose and stuff, to be honest. Yeah.
Well, you have a really unique perspective with your near-death experience and having gone
Mm.
through that already.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell everybody how they can give you money and where to hang out with you and all of that jazz.
Well, hanging out, I don't do too much, but if you guys want to find me, pretty simple. Or if you guys want to help me, well, I'm always on the AFON Discord, so that's the publisher. But also Amazon is the main way to find the books, either in English or in German.
Oh,
And
cool.
also Audible as well for the books, both English and German. I don't know why the German fan base is so big, but it is.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah. So Amazon, basically, if you guys want to find me, Mark of the Crijik or the Root of All Evil series.
Which one should they start with if they haven't read either?
Mark of the Crijik, for sure.
Okay, for
It's
sure.
just a lot easier to get into and
Okay.
has a lot more of the world building and stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
No problem. See ya.
Okay, and that is a wrap of my conversation with Think Twice. If you walked away from this video wanting to pick up Mark of the Crijik, I will have all of Think Twice's links in the description box below, including where to find the series in ebook, print, and audio. Readers consistently say that the narrator for the Mark of the Crijik series is a fantastic fit for the material. So if you are an audiophile or you love audiobooks, definitely give it a look. Now, if you are already caught up on Mark of the Crijik, The Root of All Evil is Think Twice's newer series. Same world, completely different entry point. You don't have to read one before the other, which I really appreciate, but like he said in the interview, if you are new to all of his work, you should probably start with Mark of the Crijik. I want to say thank you so much to Think Twice for sitting down with me. It's not always easy to answer questions that go past surface level, and he did that with a lot of honesty. I really enjoyed this chat. So if you enjoyed this interview, the best thing you can do is leave a comment below and maybe hit the like button if you're feeling spicy. Tell me what stood out to you and tell me which author you want me to sit down with next. Happy reading, darling.